Welcome to the Coda Podcast. I'm Rue from Rue Films, and in today's episode I'll be speaking with Mal Bunn from MB Weddings and Events. 2 years ago, fresh after her own wedding, Mal quit her job as a teacher to become a full-time wedding content creator. Armed with her iPhone and the inside knowledge on what a modern couple want for their social feeds from their wedding, her success was instant, quickly becoming one of the most sought after and respected wedding content creators in the UK. In this chat, we delve deep into the processes of a wedding content creator, how she operates on the day, what she delivers, and the working relationship she has with other wedding suppliers, specifically videographers. So another episode of the Coda Podcast, and today with Mal, who is a content creator. How are you doing, Mal?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So content creators, I feel there's so much going on in the videography industry at the minute that we don't kind of understand what's going on with content creators. So I really wanted you on here because you are top of your game when it comes to content creation. So I wanted someone who knows what they're doing to tell us exactly how it all works so we can all just understand and see how the industry is moving. So let's start from the beginning of your content creation journey. How did you get into it?
Well, believe it or not, it was actually 2 years ago now. It was 2 years yesterday, which is absolutely crazy. It's gone so fast. I think obviously it's still a very new service in the wedding industry, so people are still learning about it, daily. But for me, I feel like I've been in it forever now, which is amazing. My kind of journey in, I guess. Before I started this business, I had zero wedding experience. The only wedding experience I had was planning my own wedding. I think I'd been a guest once as well before. So, very, very little experience. And when I got married, I kind of did things, I wouldn't say a little bit different now, but 2 years ago, I did things a little bit different. And I kind of used like social media platforms more as like a memory base. So I think I had TikTok at the time, but I don't think I used it. I don't think I ever posted on there or anything like that. I didn't have any followers. And I just started to upload like random videos of my wedding. And they were really poor quality videos because we're talking, we had a really fun day. Everyone really enjoyed it. And kind of the day after, there was like a real lull period of just waiting for content that kind of never came. Two sides of that, really. One, really glad that people had a good time, put their phones away and just were present. But the other side of it was kind of gutting because like we did all these like amazing things, really high level energy, things that maybe haven't been done at weddings before. And I kind of wanted to show them off a little bit, I guess, just on my own little tiny media platform. I had a couple of videos that had sprung about, whether that was from like somebody from the venue that had filmed it because they hadn't seen this going on at a wedding before, or maybe like my mum on her really old phone, so they weren't very great, like very good videos. But I just started posting them just as a kind of memory base, really. And very quickly, they escalated. So a lot of them went viral very, very quickly. And every kind of one I posted, we were talking like 100,000 views, 1 million views, 2 million views. It was nuts because I guess people were just like, wow, you can do that at a wedding. That's crazy. And it was really nice. I kind of became this, I don't know, like TikTok inspo girl, very quickly overnight. It was absolute madness. And for me, I just wanted to continue showing people that they could do weddings their own way.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a lot of content to do that with. So I was ended up just posting the same videos. And people were asking in the comments, can we see this? Can we see the details of this? Can we see what you did on, with the bar? Can we see what you did with your cocktails? Can we see what you did with your CO2 guns? I didn't have any videos to show them. And, I got married in April, which is kind of like the start of wedding season. So was hopeful that I would get, video and photo over quite quickly. I think I got it around the 12-week mark. But by that point, I'd been on TikTok for 12 weeks. So it just kind of felt like there was something missing. If I could have had on the day somebody that was on their phone all day taking all this content for me, I'd have really benefited from it, from a social media perspective, but also just as a memory base just to relive, because I just felt that I had this real horrible lull after my wedding, the wedding blues.
Yeah.
My wedding blues were so bad. And I think it's because I just couldn't remember everything because it was such a whirlwind.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I was losing my memory, if that makes sense, because I just needed something to kind of prompt those memories again. So yeah, that's kind of like the background of where it kind of started. That was in the April. And then, so at the time I was actually a primary school teacher and I'd come out of uni. That's all I'd ever done. So I was 12 years deep. Literally the only thing I'd ever really been good at or thought that I could do. But I was at a sort of crossroads really in my career where I knew I didn't want to teach anymore, but I didn't know what else I could possibly do. So these two things kind of met, I guess, at the same time. So come the September, I went back to work. I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know it's not this anymore. And I think it's in the wedding industry. Like, I've really enjoyed these last 3 months of talking inspo and talking weddings and helping people. And by this point, I was kind of like in with a few wedding industry people. So I was going to like wedding dress shops and doing TikToks for them. I was going out with styling companies and doing little bits for them. And I just knew that's where I wanted to be, but I just wasn't sure, in what kind of niche, I guess. So I actually handed in my notice on the first day back to school, which was crazy. I did.
That's a real boss move, isn't it?
Do you know what? It was, but I just thought if I do it, there's no going back. I have to make this work. And I knew that I still had to teach till December. So I had like this 4-month period where I was going to figure it out, I guess. But I'll never forget my head teacher saying, "How was your summer?" And I was like, "Great, here's my notice." It was absolutely like...
It was that good, I'm leaving.
It was crazy, but, she really supported me as well. Everybody in that kind of, in that sector really supported me. And I just knew that I was going to do something different. But at this point, I still hadn't figured out it was content. So it's just a bit crazy. Like, as sort of time went on, I definitely saw someone doing it in Australia. So I was scrolling TikTok one day and I saw this girl and she was talking on TikTok and she said, I just thought it'd be really great. Like, is there anybody that can come to a wedding and like film it on a phone? And she was this Australian girl. And I thought, oh my God, that's exactly what I was missing from my day. Like, I haven't pieced it together, but that's what it was. And if I'd have had that, I wouldn't have felt that lull as much as I did. And so between that, it was about a week later, I said to my husband, I'm going to go for it. Like, I think I want to do that. That's what I think I want to do. I don't want people to not have the memories like I did. Like, I want them to have that instant gratification. You know what it's like in life now. We all want instant gratification, whether it's from food, whether it's from exercise, whether it's from social media. We want that really quickly. And so I put a TikTok on and I was sitting in this exact spot and I was just chatting on TikTok and I said to my husband, I'm going to put this video on. I'm going to just put it out there. I'm thinking about doing this. What does everyone think? If you're interested, drop me an email. Here's my email. And that's literally what my TikTok said. And I said to him, if I wake up and it's got like 60 views, I'm deleting it. Like, I'll never think about it again. It's gone. And I'm not even joking you. I will never, ever, ever believe this. But when I woke up in the morning, I had 77 emails.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, people are interested. And there was this like 77 emails, there was like 100 odd comments. And I was like, wow, like these people actually want to book me. And I've never, ever done this before. So that was a huge like light bulb moment for me. And I said to my husband, right, I'm going to get in touch with this bridal shop that I'm really close with. I'm going to ask them if they've got any brides that they would like me to go to their wedding. So I actually went to about 5 weddings for free. Got a little kind of mini portfolio going. And by the December when I left teaching, I had 50 weddings booked for that year.
Wow.
For the year going into 2024? Was it? No, that's this year, 2023. Yeah, so I had 50 weddings booked and I was like, right, that's it. Like, that's what we're doing. So that's kind of the backstory.
Wow. Okay. I can't even tell you how many questions I have, Mal. So bear with me. Let me work back. So all those weddings that you had booked, well, how many did you say? Was it 50 for the first year you had booked in?
Yes, and I ended up doing 110, I think it was. But when I left teaching, the moment that I left, I knew I had 50 booked in, so I knew I was kind of like going to be okay, I hope.
Yeah, so you had 50 booked in. So Oh my gosh. So I want to talk
I know.
about packages, what you're delivering, all those, but I kind of want to go
Yeah.
a bit further back. So right back for the kind of content that you were sharing from your own wedding, what was actually in
Yeah.
those videos that was kind of getting that virality?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like doing things a little bit different. Or so, I mean, now you see monochrome weddings all the time. They are a vibe. They are my, they're my favorite. I am biased, but when I first had my meeting with my styling company, they'd never ever dressed a wedding in monochrome before. So
Right.
2 years ago, it was like everyone was like, "What, black?" Like when I said to family, "So we're having but it's a black theme." They were like, "What? That's so morbid." And this was only 2 years ago, which is absolutely crazy. But we just did like really cool things. Like we had we kind of turned our wedding reception into like a rave, and we had like these CO2 guns. We came out with like little shot carts. I'd say we broke a lot of wedding rules. We very much did it our way. We scrapped off like group shots and things like that. We were like, look, we're here to have a good time and we're going to do it our way. So I just put a lot of that sort of like talking out there about what I loved about my wedding, what actually I didn't love about it, what I would change about it. So I think people really liked that someone was being so honest.
Yeah. So you kind of gathered a kind of an audience of people that are most likely planning their weddings, which
Yes.
we're not even intending to. This is just you've
Yeah.
come with this beautiful marketing storm by accident. So you've got all these brides that want to get married. Then when you decided that you actually wanted to create content, you had an active audience perfectly lined up, ready to kind of tap
Yes,
into.
and I think that's what 100% helped for me, because as soon as I like started my Instagram, I had some followers come over from TikTok, but I think without that, it would have been a lot harder to sort of get myself out there, I suppose, because like you said, I'd already created this little community. Because actually, out of the sort of like 50 couples that I booked by Christmas, every single one of them pretty much had found me on TikTok. So
Right.
it very much helped, but it was very community based. Like people knew me on there as Mrs. Bun. I'm still to this day, like I'll go to weddings and people be like, "Are you Mrs. Bun?" And I'm like, "What?" Like that's insane. That's crazy.
The teacher vibe is still chasing you around, mate.
Do you know what the funniest thing is? When I actually got married, I thought, Mrs. Bun, like I'm going to hear that every day. Like, I love my husband terribly, but he doesn't have the best surname in the world, bless him. So I thought, oh gosh, with the kids, you know what they'll end up saying, don't you, Mrs. Bum? And I thought, oh great, you know what they're like, the little is. And it literally stuck. I'm still known as it. I've left teaching and I'm still here with it. So it's stuck for life.
It was meant to be. It was meant to.
It
I
was
love
meant
it.
to be.
Because you have on your
It's
Instagram
cute.
handle, you say Mrs. Bun, doesn't it? And I was
I do,
I
do.
like that. I don't know what it is, but I'm really, really interested in marketing just in general, and something about
Yeah.
that really appealed to me. And like,
Oh,
it's
that's
it's got a
cute.
friendly feel to it. It's a friendly name, so it kind of it makes sense.
I guess it is a friendly name, and I think it's kind of my community name. So it's just
Yeah.
obviously I'm a wife first, and I always say that like obviously I would love to book everybody's weddings. I'd love to come to all of your weddings, but first and foremost, and this stems from obviously the TikTok journey that I went on, I am Mrs. Bun Wedding Tips and Inspo. So if you want to DM me and talk about your wedding, let's talk. If you don't want to book me for your wedding, but you still want to ask me some questions, fine. I'm definitely here for sort of the community base first, and business second, for sure.
Oh no, and that's how like success happens. I think like if your heart's in the right place and you want to do this because you kind of love it and you love the industry, then the work will just naturally follow. It's kind of like it's
Yeah.
and I love it when it happens for people, when people that love this industry as much as I do, like, and they get success on the back of it. Perfect. I want to I'm really kind of like meandering here, but I thought it was quite interesting when you mentioned about the wedding blues, and I've had that recently with one of my brides. That she mentioned it afterwards, and she was saying that she had been really struggling post wedding, because I guess you have this big build up to the day. So much of your thoughts and effort is going into creating that day, and then it's gone. And we know how fast a wedding day goes for our couples, don't we? I almost think it's cruel how quickly that day goes, and all that time, effort, and money like is over so quickly. But then what we're doing is obviously helping them preserve that. But yeah, how did that reveal itself to you? What were you feeling? What kind of things did you want to do
Yeah.
after the wedding to kind of improve how you felt, I guess?
I really struggled with it. I've made a few TikToks about, you know, all the things that you can do to sort of keep that momentum going. I mean, obviously, I still had like a mini moon and a honeymoon to look forward to, but I mean, that helped. That was great. But I think it was the memories for me. I'm the kind of person that if I go out with the girls or I go out on a date day, I've got to take some sort of memory from it, because I've got a terrible memory, like absolutely terrible. But if I've got that prompt, it really helps me think about like conversations that I had and like what we were giggling about and what we were talking about. And I don't know why, but like photos and videos really help prompt that for me.
Yeah.
So I think everybody says the wedding day goes fast. And I honestly would say out of 196 weddings I've done to date, every single couple on the day has said, oh my God, I didn't realise it went this quick though. And somebody always says something about it. And I think there's so many things that you obviously can do. You know, you can do all the tips about sitting back and looking at everybody and taking it all in and having 10 minutes away. And all of those things definitely help. But I think having those, you know, photos and videos straight away after, it helps you stay in your bubble. It helps you like pick up all those emotions again, because I think, if I'm honest, I felt a weird disappointment, if that's the right word, because I was just expecting this flood the next day of like, look at this I took of you, look how pretty you look in this photo, and look how happy you guys look, and you know, look how much fun everybody was having. It just kind of didn't. There was bits and bobs. One thing I did do is I didn't put social bands on my wedding.
Right.
Which is that was a very interesting topic, because obviously a lot of people do that, but I actually didn't. So I did have a few things to look back on, but it just wasn't what I expected. So yeah, I mean, I think that's something I always get in feedback from this service, is that helps with the wedding blues for sure. But loads of obviously things you can do about, you know, like packing up all your things and making memory boxes, and you know, obviously just sharing loads of content really helps. So yeah.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And it's honestly, I just feel like I've just had a light bulb moment now. I go, this is why content it's taking off, because to fill that kind of void that you almost feel after planning a big day and it being over. And also when you have a big event like a wedding and there's so much going on, you kind of numb to the emotions of it because it's an overload. And I think over time you kind of start looking back at the day and you're like, oh yeah, that was brilliant. You're remembering stuff. But instantly afterwards, there's almost like a kind of like, oh, now what?
I couldn't agree more. I think couples always say on the day, you know, it just feels surreal. Like, I don't feel like I'm here. And that's exactly how I remember feeling. It was like, I want to take it all in, but it doesn't feel like it's really happening, because I think there's this like huge, you know, sometimes 2-3 year build up and all this planning. And you've imagined these moments hundreds of times. Like, I would drive to work every day as a teacher, listening to my IELTS song, going, right, and at this point I'm going to do this, and at this point I'm going to do this, and this point, this is where his eyes meet me. And you know, you plan this moment out, and I think then when you actually live it, you don't feel like you're living it. And it's a really hard thing to sort of like understand, but I think it's afterwards then when you like look back, you're like, oh, I do remember that. And it's kind of nice to be like, oh, look how my guests were reacting to my dress, and look at how the guests were clapping and they were so happy for us, and all of those little things that you don't notice at the time, you can notice afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think there's a possibility on the wedding day, because I get this in life in general, things where I am a massive overthinker, and I'll like plan things out that are going to happen in my head, like to the nth degree. But then on the day, if they don't pan out perfectly how I imagined them, I'm a bit disappointed. Can that happen to brides on their wedding day, do you think?
100% all the time. And I think one thing you've got to go into your wedding, the biggest tip is to just let it be. You've planned it and planned it and planned it, but there is never a perfect wedding day. Something always happens that's not going to be exactly how you imagined it, but it's not always a bad thing. And I think you've got all these amazing suppliers that you've put so much trust into. They will sort things for you. You know, we've always got their best interests at heart. So I think you've got to kind of go into it with a bit of an open mind of, yes, I've planned it this way, but actually it will pan out how it's supposed to pan out. And you've got to just take those moments as they come and just cherish them, because you won't get them again.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way a day, the beauty in a wedding is quite often the moments that you didn't expect, isn't it? That's what I always think. That's what I always tell my couples
definitely.
as well. Like, yes, you can plan that how he's gonna look at you walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
But then once you throw a load of nervousness and emotions into a day, like things change
Changes
completely.
everything.
But it's always going to be the moments that you didn't expect that are going to have the most emotional impact on you, I think. But yeah, so it's kind of that's what we can do to our kind of couples before, kind of educate them in that kind of way, can't we? To try and help them not have this kind of void of disappointment after the day, or just hit them with content.
Hit them with content. I mean, there's so many tips out there, isn't there? And I think it's almost become a little bit, I mean, when I first sort of started TikTok, there wasn't many people like doing all the wedding tips and things. There was like a few like people in that niche. It's everywhere now, you know, everybody's giving wedding tips, and it's wonderful. But I think it can be a little bit overload at times. You know, there's that many tips that you have to think of I've got to take my bouquet out at this moment, I've got to make sure it's dried, and then I've got to make sure I do this, and I've got to make sure I do that. And there's so many tips that you've almost kind of got, take them all in, but if they don't happen on the day, it's fine. It doesn't matter. Like it will be how it will be, and you'll absolutely love it.
Absolutely. And they should just relinquish responsibility and give some responsibility to us, because we spend our life at weddings. I know, like, for a prime example, like getting the bouquet out of the water, that's something that I make sure happens every day. Mainly selfish reasons. I don't want anything to slow me down so I can get to like the ceremony in time. So anything that I know is going to cause drama, I'm making sure that doesn't happen. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Can we go into the packages and what you actually deliver, if that's okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. So over the years, things have changed a little bit, because I'm kind of like, I think with this service, it evolves very quickly. And I think you realise what works, you realise what doesn't work. So even going in now, I haven't opened for 2026 just yet, but even for 2026, I'm changing things. So I'll kind of talk about what I do now. Yeah. I actually offer 3 different packages to suit, you know, various different days. So I offer I'm going to talk for next year, actually, sorry. I offer a 5-hour package. This is great for sort of like elopements, you know, those kind of London days. They're fantastic. It also really works for like evening receptions if you've got married abroad, things like that. And also just, you know, if for people their ceremony is the most important part of their day and that build-up, it will work really well as a half-day option as well. I then do like what I'll call my sort of like middle package. This is probably my most popular one, which is 9 hours. 9 hours is fantastic because if you start 2 hours prior to ceremony, you get that build up, you get all of those kind of formalities throughout the day, all the big moments, and that usually takes you up till half an hour after first dance. That's just perfect. And then I offer like a full day package. Now the difference obviously between that one and the 9 hour, you do get a little bit more time, but it's mostly the amount of content that you get. So you get more sort of put together reels, things that are sort of pre-made for you. So with the other 2, you just get the one, and then all of the raw content. So yeah, do you want me to kind of delve into what I offer throughout those other than the hours?
Yeah. If you can go into the content. So just breaking down what you just said. So the first 2 packages are based on the hours that you're doing. And with those, you're giving them one reel, pre-made reel. Which is that kind of like to music that they choose, or do you?
Yeah, so well, I mean, it's up to them. We give out like a questionnaire a couple of weeks before their wedding, and within that questionnaire, they can give as much or as little inspo as they want. They can give music, they can give other reels they've seen, they can give Pinterest boards. The world is their oyster, really, and I think the whole purpose of this service is I want them to go into the day thinking that if they had their phone on the day, what would they capture? What would they want capturing? Yeah. Whereas this way they can go, I want this. This is what I've spent a lot of money on. This is what I've DIY'd. I've spent a lot of time on this. These are the important people. These are the important moments for me. So they can go into the day, put their phone away and think, I can be rest assured it's all going to be captured and I don't need to think about my phone. And that is a luxury in itself, because even when, like I said, when I go out with the girls or something, I'm always thinking, I need a memory. So what a luxury to put your phone to the side for a day and just be present. So they actually get all of the raw content that I take. That's every single video. So we are talking hundreds. I always say to people, you need to book a couple of days off to probably go through it all. I organise that for them, so they're not expected to just sort of sit there. Things are organised into kind of like the morning, the ceremony, so they're able to sort of pick out bits that they want. It's very accessible. So they get all of the raw content, and then they get that pre-ready-made reel. If they've asked for certain music, they get certain music. If they haven't, then I'll kind of like just use what I've learned throughout the day, what their style is, what their feel as a couple is, and kind of roll with that really. And like I have some couples that give me loads and loads of inspo, and I have couples that just say, Mal, you do you. So it just depends on the couple really, but that's why it's such a flexible service.
Yeah. And then like with the bigger package, you're doing more pre-made things. The two other packages, it's one reel, all the content. The last package, what kind of things are you giving them in addition to the reel?
So it's actually more reels more so than anything.
Right.
So it's just different varieties. So you'll have like a longer form one, you'll have short form ones, you might have some in a different style. And we offer things like little add-ons, like little Polaroids and just little bits and bobs like that with that package. Just, I would say that one, the difference with that one and the others is just like it's a kind of variety of media, I guess, and ways of seeing your day in kind of different ways. But I think that one's really good as well for people who are more active on social media. They might not have the time to sort of create all their own things. They might want things out very quickly. They might be doing it from a marketing perspective. So that one's great for those sort of people. But there's definitely a misunderstanding with this service that it's for people that are very active on social media, have a lot of following. And do you know what? That's not the case at all. Like, I actually think that's a small portion of my clientele, really. Majority of couples, they just want the memories and they want them fast, and that's why those other packages like massively suit sort of for that reason. But I always say to people, don't book what you don't need. So that's why there's a bit of a mismatch between different things they can have.
And when you first started out, say that first year, obviously you did your free ones to get yourself up and running. What were you what were you charging in your first year?
Oh my goodness, next to nothing. Next to
we
nothing.
all go through that stage.
Yeah.
We have to.
I mean, when I look back now, I think, oh my goodness, I probably just covered my fuel costs. Mainly. I think I can't even remember what I did starting out. But I'm obviously happy to be transparent now. Going forward for next year, we're sort of looking from $650 till $1250 without add-ons. So that's the kind of price range we're looking at.
And so for $650, is that the kind of the half day package, or
yes?
And then what would the middle package be like if you're doing like 8 hours, was it, and then one reel and all the raw footage?
Yes, so that one's priced at $950.
Yeah, $950. Yeah, yes. Because I'm trying to think. I like to trying to think where that sits in terms of videography, and
absolutely,
I'd say that
yes.
kind of like round that market. Yeah, because when I look at the reel, so the reels that you deliver, is that what's kind of on your Instagram page at the moment?
Yes, mainly.
Because I don't know if I'm right. This is my theory about content creators. I feel like there's almost 3 categories of content creators. There's there's the trends, the ones that do all the trends. So they're kind of majority of what they want to do is doing like whatever the TikTok trend is at the time, and they're setting up these little moments. And then there's the sort that are like 100% just behind the scenes, kind of like just the nuts and bolts of how a wedding works. And then there's others that are kind of almost like it's almost like old school wedding videography in a way. Whereas they're creating similar. I'd say your work kind of falls into that. From what you put on your Instagram, it's wedding videography to a point, isn't it? But without speeches, so it falls in like a wedding videography category. Do you feel like that's how it fits?
I guess I agree with you to an extent. Yes, I think it's more. I don't see it as people are in different kind of categories. I see it as people have different styles. So I always say to my clients, I don't get a lot of my clients that come through and ask for a lot of the TikTok trends. It's something I don't really post because I can do them. But if I'm being totally honest, there is content creators in this country that are way better at doing them than I am. They're just really, really, really good at doing them. So if that's, as a client, if you're coming through and you think that's what I want all the TikTok trends, I probably wouldn't be the right person for them, because I just think that they could have that better with somebody else. So I do think, yes, there's some that kind of specialize in that and have that as more of their sort of like, speciality, I guess. And then, I kind of agree with what you're saying about the styles. So I would say my style is kind of a little bit more cinematic, maybe than others. But if you were to look at all the raw footage, it would look very behind the scenes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think when I'm making a reel, I will use more creative and artistic kind of cinematic pieces. But actually, if you were to look at the whole sort of context of what I'm delivering, a lot of it would look as that behind the scenes where the photographer's in those shots, you're behind people, and it's kind of like a variety really, but that's just, I guess, my style. And I think everybody does differ in kind of what they offer, really.
Yeah, so that makes sense because kind of that was the one thing that I was confused with content creation. A lot of it is sold as like behind the scenes, but what I'm seeing online to me is videography. But I guess that's the thing is you're not gonna be posting all the raw footage up there, are you? So it's basically your reel is your curated version of all the footage that you're getting. So you're probably not showing all the nuts and bolts of a wedding, but you can see the more pretty stuff is what's getting created for that reel.
Yes, exactly that. But they are kind of getting that behind the scenes look as well. And I think that's why people sort of say that's what it is, because the majority of what you deliver is hundreds of like videos and, you know, odd photos and things as well. But it is very behind the scenes. Like I always say to photographers and videographers on the day, if you need to move, like, don't worry about me. Like, I'm not set up on a tripod or anything like that. It doesn't need to be perfect. You're part of the day. Like, do what you need to do. And that's the kind of beauty of what we do, I guess. It doesn't have to be perfect, but yes, the creative pieces, I think just from my style, that's just what works for me. That just feels quite authentic. But I guess, yes, there is a difference between, obviously, even if it is cinematic, there still would be a huge difference between what I would produce and what the videographer would produce.
Yeah, and how... There's so many questions. I really hope I can get them all out because I'm just so like when I'm really interested in something, I get a bit obsessive. So I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I guess first question is, how often are you working alongside a videographer? Is it majority of weddings, or are you there in replace of a videographer for some people?
I would say it's probably 60-40 with a videographer.
Oh, really?
Yes, and a lot of the time that comes down to, as in, my choice and what I advise my couples to do. And I think the clientele that I get through want all of these memories and they want them in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, when I'm having conversations and consultation calls, it can be very 50-50. I'd obviously like to touch on this a little bit, if that's okay, because I think it's really, really, really important. I am the biggest advocate for a videographer. I am very, very transparent. I had a consultation call yesterday where a client called me and she was so sweet and she was so lovely, but she said to me, "Is there any chance you can make like a longer film?" And I was like, oh, red flag. And then she says, "I'd like it to be really, really, really cinematic. Can you then film the speeches in full?" Red flag. My advice to her was, look, I would love to do your wedding, but you need a videographer. What you're after, you're not going to be satisfied with my service. Like, I don't think you are. You might love it and it might be great for now, but actually from what you're saying to me, a videographer will suit you so much better. So I actually sent her a list of videographers and said, go and have a chat with these people, because I think that's where that's the direction you need to go. But I am very, very honest. Like, I will say to people, I can't create what your videographer can. I can create something great, but it's not going to be what they can create. It is a very different service. And I've always said, like, ever since I started, I've always said we're not a replacement. But I have become a little bit braver with what I say, because I do think to an extent we could be an alternative. And there is a lot of clients that videography just isn't for them, and that's fine. They might not want a cake, you know, they might not want fresh flowers. Everybody has different tastes and different like wants from their day. And I do think that not all clients necessarily want or need a videographer. So I don't feel that, like, if somebody says that to me, that's not a red flag. Like, if they're confident in that's what they want, then that's fine by me. And I do think we're a really great modern alternative. But it depends on the couple, for sure. Like, absolutely depends on the couple. But I couldn't be more of an advocate. And I think the best, if I'm honest, the best weddings that I do and where I feel that my content is more creative is when there's a videographer, because I feel I'm really able to get into my role when I know the formalities are sorted. So if you've got a photographer and you've got a videographer, they've got you, they've got your ceremony, they've got your speeches, they've got all of those key moments, and they're perfect. I can then be a little bit more creative and adapt my style to maybe look at what parents are doing during these moments, maybe look at what reactions they're getting, and kind of capture those moments that the other two aren't capturing. I can't do that when there's not a videographer, and my service has to change very slightly, because I'm conscious that if I don't record the vows in full, they're never going to see them in full. So when there's a videographer, I wouldn't do that. I'd just take little snippets. But when there isn't, I feel that my service has to differ slightly because I'm more conscious of what I deliver to them and them having the best sort of memories for them. So yeah, did that answer that?
Yeah, that I mean, that's another light bulb going off for me. That's amazing. I mean, I've been speaking to videographers that have worked with you, and
Yes.
overwhelmingly, every single one has said they've absolutely loved the experience of working with you. That you've added to the day, and you've added that they've been able to up their work together. And I love the idea that I think if I was there working with you, the fact that I know you're covering certain aspects of the day, it's kind of a weight off a little bit, so I can concentrate on the things that I know that my couple need me to get, and you're there getting kind of like some reactions and stuff, and it means your couple are going to get the best of everything from all of you. So yeah, and like, I love that idea. Yeah.
I think one example I always use is if you think about the moment, maybe in the morning, and you're doing gifts or you're reading out letters from each other in the morning, you're going to get beautiful still images of those moments. You're going to get maybe in your cinematic film, you're maybe going to get a couple of seconds clips of that. Whereas I'm going to film the whole moment. Yeah. So I'm going to get what they say to each other, you know, what the reactions are, you know, if there's any sort of like back and forth conversation about it, you're going to see that whole moment. And that's how I always say it complements each other, because what I'm actually doing is I'm not shooting the same thing as them. I'm shooting like a fuller, a rounder moment, I guess, if you like a longer form video. But also at other parts of the day, I might be in a completely different place. You know, I might be seeing what your guests are getting up to in your drinks reception, or your musicians, and all of those things that maybe, you know, a videographer, a photographer can't be in two places at once, but actually when they're sort of there, I can be that second person, I guess. So yeah, everything's just different perspectives, different angles, and you know, that's a real compliment. People obviously saying that they've enjoyed working with me, and I think going into that, some people do have reservations, and I totally understand that, but I always hope that by the end of that day, they're like, do you know what? She's not shooting over my shoulder. She's not duplicating what I'm doing. I'm very much there to get my own sort of like perspective on the day, fly on the wall kind of vibe. So yeah, I mean, I think people feel a little bit frightened sometimes that if they have all three, there's too many people. But I've worked in teams of 8, and it's been the best day ever. You know, I think as long as you're happy to work with each other, you're respectful of each other's sort of work, it will work for the couple for sure.
Absolutely. And I think this is something that I really want to like push home, really, is kind of we're all there for the couple, which sounds obvious, but I think so often egos are getting in the way. And I think that stems from the fact that we want to make sure that they've booked us to create a product, and we want to make the best of that product for them. And sometimes if there's other people in the way, it can kind of hinder what we're doing. But you sit down as a team, you're thinking they want the best from all of us. And if we work together as a team, we just want to make sure the couple, we're not thinking about our portfolios, we're not thinking about pushing our career any further, we're thinking about just creating a great record of this wedding day. And we each have certain specialities and certain areas where we're going to create the best version of that part of the wedding. So working together and working it out, coordinating, you can make sure all of you are delivering like a superstar service, and just by not being dicks as well, right? It's just as simple as that.
It helps. It does help. Like, you know, I've spoken a lot on my social media and podcasts and things about some of the, you know, horrific experiences that I've had over the last couple of years. But I do think, you know, when people sort of come together, there's so many times where like we bounce ideas off each other. You know, I might suggest something and the photographer goes, wow, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And I think it's all about collaboration. And at the end of the day, like you said, if we get great stuff for our own social media and marketing, fantastic, but that's not what it's about. We're lucky to be there on this special day. Someone has spent money for us to be there. They've invested time in us, you know, trust in us. And I just think on the day, it's about them. It's not about you. And I think that's what everybody kind of needs to understand. And actually, I always think the best work that I get for myself is when things are authentic and collaborative. So yeah, I just hope if anyone's listening to this and you're scared of content creators or you're a bit worried and anxious, drop me a DM. I'm happy to chat to you at any point. I promise we're not that scary. But also, you know, I will touch on the fact that there are new content creators out there. I made mistakes at the start for sure, and I learned a lot. And there were certain things I probably did that were really annoying at the beginning. But if you don't give us opportunity to learn and you don't communicate, you know, how do people ever get better. And I know now I am 100% confident in what I do. I wasn't at the beginning, but I am now, because people have helped me along that journey and like gave me, given me tips and helped me out and give me advice. And I think without those people, and these are photographers and videographers I'm talking about, maybe I wouldn't be as confident as I am today. So yeah, I think it's all about collaborating for sure, working together.
Have you had any pushback on wedding days or even before wedding days from photographers and videographers? Come on, spill the goss.
Just a bit, yeah, just a bit. One thing I will say is I've done a couple of things that definitely help that. So I always reach out to anybody that I'm working with beforehand. I do that for a couple of reasons, really. One, so I can get the gist if they're not happy with me or not. That gives me a good, come on, we've got this today, girl. But also, I think it helps with, any apprehensions, because we've all worked with people that were like, oh my God, I don't know if I'd want to work with them again. They might have worked with content creators that they feel the same about, but we're not all the same. So I always reach out and just say, look, this is what I'm going to be doing on the day. If you got any questions, jump on a call with me, let me know. Like, I can get some behind the scenes of you as well. If you like, you can use the content for your social media. So that definitely helps sort of start the conversation and start a relationship off well. And again, I did that just going off the back of kind of what, things that had happened to me. But as time goes on, it's getting less and less and less. There's less and less pushbacks. I don't go to every wedding now feeling like, oh my God, what's going to happen today? Because I did at the beginning. Definitely pushbacks. There's a lot of people that aren't, I guess at the beginning, people were kind of like, this isn't going to last. It's never going to happen. We're not going to entertain it. I definitely had people that were horrible. Definitely horrible to me.
On the day itself?
Oh yeah, like I've sat in my car and cried at lunch. It's been horrendous.
Really?
It was horrendous at the beginning. It was absolutely horrendous. I had people that were saying things on social media about me, writing things in groups. It was really bad. It was really bad at the beginning, but I actually think now people are more open-minded to it because of things like this, because of podcasts, and because people have worked with them or their friends have worked with a content creator and they've said it's fine, and it's just becoming more and more popular now. And I think people are accepting that it's not going away, which is the biggest thing. And people, unfortunately, it's something that couples want, so they're going to have to modernize and get used to it a little bit, I guess. But yeah, majority of the time people are absolutely lovely.
Have you ever had it where there's been such kickback from a supplier that the couple have had to cancel the booking with you?
I've had one where they've had to cancel the booking with me because of the kickoff. I've had a fair handful where they've like made rules on the day, so you can have her, but she's not to do this and this. And I actually had one where it was 2 days before. I wasn't, but he kicked off that much. I wasn't allowed to go. This was 2 days before, so the couple had to completely sacrifice me going. And I'll never forget. This is a bit juicy. This one. This photographer actually said she can come as long as she does something else. And the couple said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "I don't know, like help wait or something."
What?
Yeah. No word of a lie.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean that I've had some where they've imposed some crazy rules. She's not to be here. You can't be in the room at this point. There was one where I wasn't allowed to be in the room as the photographer at the same time. So that was a bit weird. But you know what? The only person that impacts is the couple.
Yeah.
It's not great for me, but it's not about me. It's not my day. At the end of the day, I can cry in my car at lunch and nobody needs to see that. But for them, how awkward for that couple. And at the end of the day, are they then going to go and recommend you to their friend? Not a chance. So
absolutely.
They dig their own hole. They dig their own hole.
Yeah, it's such a strange mentality, that, isn't it? But at the same time, I can actually totally imagine that happening. And I'm trying to think, is say because I've not worked with a content creator yet. Hopefully I will do, because I just like having people around to chat to, if I'm honest. I'm all for it.
Yeah,
but like I can imagine a scenario. This is a scenario that plays out in my head when I think about creation, which kind of scares me a little bit. So, for example, like I feel we have, as videographers, we have a massive power over them in terms of that we're capturing sound and movement. and
Yes.
you kind of like the photographers deliver their stuff, but I think we have such power when we deliver our film. It's got this such impact, emotional impact, and things like the dad reveal, which I always think is a really highly emotionally charged moment when the dad sees his daughter in the dress for the first time. It's a wonderful, wonderful moment, and I always like in my films trying to create like an emotional build up to that part, and I think it's a real good emotional payoff in the film. It's like big impact, but then I think if they've already seen like a video of that, like from the content creator, I think it's that lessening the impact of what we do.
But can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
This might be a bit awkward, but I get what you're saying 100%, but then that's about you, because if the couple if the couple were to mind about that, they wouldn't hire us. So the way I see it is that's what they knew they were getting, that's what they've booked. So they obviously know that they're going to see that first, and then they're going to see it in a kind of different way. And I always say we're the starter, you guys are the main. And I think actually I don't see it from that perspective. I see it as, do you know what, they've seen it, but now they're about to see it even better. They're about to see it even more impactful. And I always say that people that kind of turn around to us and say, well, they've already seen a little bit of that. I'm like, yeah, but it's not about you.
Yeah.
That's what they've chosen to do at the end of the day, isn't it? So I completely see where you're coming from, but I think that they're more than aware of the service that they're booking. But I also think it's about being respectful, because I know there are content creators that are miking up, for example, they might be using drones. You know, each to their own. That's not something I'm going to do, because for me, I see myself as I have created this business and this service where I go to weddings and I film it on an iPhone. If I start doing those things, I, one, become the cheaper alternative videographer. Two, I'm stepping on toes. That's your game. The drones are your game. You know, miking up is yours. And I'm like, so for example, if there's a videographer, I will never ever go in anywhere near speeches. I don't even enter the room. I think there's certain parts of the day that I've just learned throughout like what I've done to just be really super respectful about as well. So like things like the dad reveal and stuff, unless we've got, you know, a gap this big, I'm going to try and just capture it different as well, so that we all get our own little bit. And I think that's really important. And I think that's something I've learned to sort of really channel, is doing things my way, but also doing things in a respectful way, so that you guys get your moment, the photographer gets their moment, I get my moment, but everything's different. Does that make sense?
That's so interesting that you've said that, because as you say that to me, I'm thinking, yeah, this is my ego getting in the way here. Because like, why would I be bothered if they've already seen that moment? They don't need, like, they've got the emotional impact. I think what it is because the whole
it's I get it though,
yeah, the hard work of videography is actually all in the edit, and it's all about building those moments in and making it flow, and it's really, it's hard work crafting that, and it's kind of thinking, but they've already, it's not gonna have the emotional impact 'cause it's already done. But like you say, yes, that's it's still gonna have that emotional impact for them. Like, it doesn't matter that it's not the first time they've seen it. I'm gonna craft it differently to how it would be for a content creation. It'd be more of a kind of documentary of it, right? A bit more, a bit raw and white, but it's still that moment. Whereas mine would be a bit more cinematic. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You're totally right. And that was my only concern about content creators, was them, the emotional impact of moments being taken away. But like you say, it's something they're going to keep for a lifetime, this film. So it doesn't matter if it's not the first time they've seen it, because you want them to be watching it over and over again anyway.
It's those moments for you, like those bits with audio especially, are something that your craft, you know, really, really relies heavily upon for that sort of, like you said, emotional sort of impact. But whereas actually, if you look at most of my reels, there's not that many that you see the dad reveal, the bridesmaid reveal. I might put it in some, but actually those moments heavily rely on that audio, and I obviously don't record it like that. So when they've seen it from quite far away. The audio's a bit naff because it's on an iPhone. It's not going to have that same impact. So yeah, I think it's just about, I always say, I don't want to duplicate for two reasons really. One, because I want to be really respectful for you. But can you imagine if I was trying to duplicate yours? Like, mine would look rubbish. So like, actually, I'm better off doing my own thing and like being authentic with my kind of style, because that will be seen, you know, in a much better light than me just, and what's the point in them having two videos that look exactly the same? There was no point hiring me then, was there? So yeah, it's all about sort of just doing things a little bit different.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I'm feeling like content creation fills the gaps where video can miss, because of like the kind of production that we have to put into things, and the worry with setting gear up, and there's all little moments that could be missed. But yeah, a content creator going around gathering it, And the sort of things when people come over and ask you to film something and you think from a videographer point of view, this won't fit in a film. It makes no sense. But from a content creator's point of view, anything makes sense to be filmed because it's all going to work.
Anything makes sense.
Yeah.
And I always say, the beauty of what we do is we do capture all those key moments. Of course we do, we're not going to miss those. But for me, it's about the bits in between. It's about all the little details and all those kind of memories. I mean, I had a couple of weeks ago, and I remember she said to me, my nan's going to be there. She's 98. This might be the last event that she ever comes to with our family. Yeah. And she said, I want you to focus on her. So throughout the ceremony, I've got the nan grabbing mum's hand. I've got the nan crying and all of those things that, that couple wouldn't have seen because they're facing each other. They're, mid-ceremony. And I remember her saying after, like, I can't believe, like, you caught them. So they're like those imperfect moments, they're friends that haven't seen each other for a while having a hug. It might not look great for a film, but actually it's about the memories. It's about sort of preserving all of those sort of like, people and special times. So yeah, it's definitely a great gap fill, and that's why I always say the best way you can do it is if you can. I know it's not a possibility obviously for everybody, but if you can have photo, video and content, you are absolutely winning the game of memories.
Mate, I'm sold. I'm 100% sold. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. Me and Jade, we'll get married again. You're hired.
Please do.
If you're available, that is.
I know, right?
You got rammed here. So, gear, like I'm a videography podcast. We're going to talk about gear. So, what are you using to film? Is it literally an iPhone?
It is literally an iPhone. I've got 2 iPhones and I've got a DJI gimbal as well for obviously a steady hand. I actually don't use that all of the time. So a lot of it is freehand because I just think it looks more iPhone, BTS vibes, that's kind of what we're going for. We're going for that. I want it to look like you had a guest there that filmed all the really cool parts for you, but was really good with angles and lighting.
Yeah.
And could spot nice things, so that's how I kind of want it to look. So I do film everything on an iPhone. Like I said, I've got a gimbal. I do have the DJI little Pocket as well as a backup. Again, that films very similar to an iPhone. But yeah, I mean, I don't use anything else. There's no mics, there's no drones, there's nothing else. I literally just take that. That's it.
So when you said the DJI, so that's like the Osmo Pocket, like the little kind of little camera attached to a mini gimbal kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a little vlogging. I guess it's great for like vlogging and things like that. So sometimes I use it to sort of vlog the weddings, but it's great as a backup. We can film in vertical as well. So yeah, if obviously anything happened to my phones, I've got another little backup really.
Do you need to are you just filming straight onto the iPhone storage? Are you just going straight onto your memory, or do you have to have an external recording?
It goes straight onto memory. After the wedding, then everything's uploaded to Dropbox, and that's how I obviously get everything over to the couple. I'll store it on Dropbox for about 12 weeks. After that, it's gone. So you need to make sure you've obviously downloaded all of it. And then I'll just, after 48 hours, it's wiped from my phone. So yeah, it just keeps loading up, it's gone again, loading off and it's gone again. That's kind of how it works.
So is it doing it as you go through? Is it uploading for you as you go through the day, or you do it in one go?
No, but obviously we have a very quick turnaround, and people are always like, how are you getting it that quick? Like, are you staying up all night? I mean, I used to be a teacher, so I'm a fantastic multitasker. But I think we can obviously, because it's on a phone device, we can do things obviously a lot quicker. We're not having to back up on laptops. We're not having to sit and obviously make things that way. So the way that I kind of do it is I try and cull as I go. It's not always possible depending on obviously how busy the day is. But for things like during speeches and during lunch, I'm culling everything from that morning. So when I say cull, it's a light cull. It's not anything too deep. It's more just like if I've made the phone go wonky or I've caught something at a weird time, we're deleting those little bits. And then I actually upload everything overnight. So once I'm sort of home, everything will just be, highlighted, uploaded, and then it's there by morning.
Oh, nice. And so the reel, when do you do that? Is that ready for the next day, or is that later down the line?
Most of the time. So my reels, I used to have 24 hours on them. I actually put 48 on now. And that's just because of things like back-to-back weddings. So it's done within 48 hours, but I would say 90% of the time I have it to them the next day. So yeah, it's done very quickly. And again, it's kind of during that cull process, I'm also sort of favoriting the highlight bits, I guess, so that when it comes to sort of editing it, it's just all loaded into CapCut, trimmed down, music added. It's quite, I wouldn't say it's a quick process. I do spend a good 2-3 hours on each one, but yeah, that's how it's obviously done the next day.
I mean, you're talking to videographers here, 2 to 3 hours. Like, wait, that
It's
is
like 2
nothing.
to 3 hours. That's so rude. Yeah.
That's us turning our computers on.
Yeah, literally.
So it's CapCut you're using then to edit? Because
I do.
Yeah, I don't know much about CapCut, so just assuming that's like an in-phone app for editing video.
Yes, yeah, and it's linked really well with other social media platforms. So actually, it just works really well for obviously the purpose and the intention of what we're creating.
So do you, all these reels that you make, do you post all of them yourself on your own socials, or do you pick and choose?
I would not have time to post 96 weddings.
True.
Absolutely not at the time. So I go into little holes sometimes. I mean, obviously this is my job, but social media in itself is a full-time job, isn't it? So it's physically impossible when I'm doing, especially during summer, I'm doing 3-4 weddings a week. I mean, then in editing the other days, I don't know. But yeah, obviously if people post them and they collab with me, fantastic, because then they can go on there without me doing obviously the work. But yeah, I'll post as many as I can. It's just a bit random, really. There's no sort of logic behind it, I guess. Yeah, I like to post everyone's days. Everyone's days will get posted on stories and things like that because I want to show them all off. But yeah, not always will I have the time to post everything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's what we're all the same. Like, kind of, nobody posts everything. You shouldn't be anyway. If you are, you shouldn't be. You need to kind of curate what you're putting out there to kind of like target your ideal market.
Of course.
So in terms of the equipment, because this is what, say if I was a content creator, right? I'd be shooting my first ones, and then I'd be like, if I upgraded my phone to a camera, the quality of that'd be that little bit better. And then it'd be like, if I introduced a bit of sound, and bit by bit, I'd be incrementally improving everything until I'm just a videographer. Is that temptation not there for you? Surely, like,
the temptation is there. Yeah, the temptation is real, definitely, and I understand why. I've trialed little things like that before. Maybe if there isn't a videographer there, I've trialed it and I've gone, oh, I actually really like that, but we have to also remember that the service we are putting out there is for phones. We don't want to become the videographers of this world. So I think, I've always stuck with, I've stayed in my lane. I've always stayed in my lane. But if I am honest, I've got to a point now where I will take, say, a photo on my phone and everyone's like, God, that's good. Can you imagine what it'd be like on a camera? And I'm like, I can. So yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, for 2025, I am going to be learning photography. That's definitely my next move, just sort of do alongside. And yeah, eventually, hopefully the whole package really. But I think that's more for me because I know what I can achieve on a phone. And I'm just like, I'm eager to sort of progress now, like from my own learning, from my own education. But I want the next thing now. I think I'm ready. So yeah, when I'm at a wedding and I'm doing content, I stay in my lane and I do content. But for my own progression going forward, yes, I would love to learn photography. That's the next step.
Because this is what I think is going to happen, right? And I think it's a good thing. Content creators, they're going to cut their teeth doing weddings. They're going to see how a wedding goes out, seeing all these beautiful things. Then they might get a bit frustrated with like thinking, oh, that could look so much better if I changed this. So I think gradually content creators will become videographers, but in a way, I think they're going to change the industry in terms of how things are delivered because they're more clued up with what brides want, how they want things put together. Because it seems a lot of content creators have literally just got married themselves, right? So they've gone through the experience themselves.
Yes.
They're the target audience. They know what a bride and groom now want because there's generations, right? There's generations of bride and grooms. And I'd say the generation...
Yes.
It's a certain age group, isn't there? There's a demographic that people getting married. And I think the people getting married now have grown up with social media, live their life that way to a certain extent. So are used to having content quite quickly to share, and that's how they live their life. So waiting like 12 weeks like they have to for my film is kind of not in their world. I think we have to adapt or die as videographers. And I think there's going to be a clash, not a clash, like a kind of merging of the two, where videographers need to take elements from content creation to stay relevant. And I think the main thing in that is this quick delivery. And as kind of the only thing holding us back really is kind of transferring files over. So shooting on the phone means lends itself to fast delivery, doesn't it? 'Cause it's all there,
Yes.
it's all cloud-based and to kind of move over. But what are your thoughts on that? I feel like I've just randomly rambled there, but
No, yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from, but realistically, how do videographers get films over any quicker than what they're already doing them? Because like you
Yeah.
said, it's you need 4 days in your cave to get that sort of film ready. So it's just, to an extent, yes, I guess I can see what you're saying about learning from each other, but I don't know. I mean, part of me is kind of like, actually, as time goes on, will it just become a thing that the 3 sort of different media types become this norm? I mean, at
Yeah.
first it was photographers, then videographers kind of broken, and then that's now become the norm that you have the 2. Will it just become the norm going forward that you have 3, and then that gap is kind of like done? Because, and that's why I always say to videographers, listen, like, you give me some gyp sometimes, guys, but actually I'm benefiting you because me
Yeah.
sending them over, they're not on your backs. So I think
Exactly.
sometimes it's a good thing. So I don't know if realistically what you produce is so beautifully crafted and it's so professionally crafted. I don't see how you can get that any sooner. You know, maybe teasers, but again,
Yeah.
it's just that film, it has to take time. And I think that's why people pay you what they pay you, because you have to dedicate that time to it. And I don't think that can go away. And I think that's something that will always be, you know, heavily respected. So I think for me, going forward, it might just become the norm that the 3 people, it goes, that's just how it goes. I think that just becomes the new norm.
Yeah, I think, but like, say for example, like the reels that you produce, I think a videographer could
Yeah.
turn one of those round. I mean, in terms of,
yeah,
because
yeah.
like, yeah, and I think that's the area that people need to look into. It's like getting
I
some
say,
kind of
yeah.
highlight film. Then the full delivery, we absolutely couldn't. But like the highlight film, I think getting that out the next day would be quite. That would get you bookings basically. If you could promise people that you could get them a highly crafted,
Yes.
a polished shot film, it wouldn't have all the speeches and stuff in, but to the next
Yeah.
day, I think that would be a big seller. And I think people almost like all bride and grooms now expect a drone. Like I think that's going to be how we move. They're going to expect something
Yeah.
the next day, however that is.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think if that's something that's possible, then yeah, I don't think that's ever going to be a bad thing, because like you said, people just want things and they want them straight away
Yeah.
now, don't they? So, I mean, like, I think that's how it will just continue to move. I think everybody wants things faster. So yeah, maybe adapting with sort of like that highlight would be a great idea. And I know a lot of videographers now as well are either bringing their own content creator, or they're putting like a phone on top of their camera and things.
Yeah.
I guess good in one sense. They're kind of looking at what works, but you're never going to get, and I'm going to put it out there, I'm going to make this statement, you are never going to get a highlight Instagram reel from a videographer that's put it on the top of their camera that looks anything like what we can produce, because we can fully concentrate on that.
Yeah.
So I just think if you've got a content creator there as well, just don't worry about it. Don't give yourself extra work.
Yeah, and I think the most beautiful thing about content creators would be if bride and grooms say to all their couples, everyone put their phones away. No phones are allowed all day. The content creator's going to handle that, because I know they say like kind of like like during the ceremony and stuff, put your phones away. We've got videographers and photographers there, but it's not realistic for the whole day. I've had couples before that have tried to enforce that. It's impossible without almost ruining the day for everyone. Like where they had the photographer that was told to actually go around and tell guests to put their phones away. How embarrassing is that? Like just let people have their little bit. But if the whole day, especially bridal prep, when you know the bridesmaids are doing all this stuff for the phones, so if you've got a dedicated person to handle that for you, then that would just
it's
be
confetti. Confetti for me is
gosh.
it kills me, because I think, guys, you can have this video from me. You are more than welcome to it. I've got a great angle here. I'm looking straight at the couple.
Yeah.
When people are they're holding a phone and they're trying to throw confetti over it, I just think for one day, don't live through a screen. Just don't live through a screen, especially for those key moments. Like exit in the aisle is another one. It's your phone's in the aisle. It drives me mad. So I always actually say to my clients on their last kind of call, put it on your website, put it on your Instagram. Just say to people, relax. Like, you can have the footage afterwards. You can use it on your own social media if you want to. But for these parts of the day, just be present with us. But I think phones are worse than ever. And I've only been in it 2 years and I can see that they're worse than ever.
Yeah, that's it. It's the generation of people coming through that at weddings now, live through their phones,
Dreadful.
we're all at phones now. It's
Dreadful.
Yeah, it almost feels weirder to them to not have a phone, right? I feel like
Yes.
recording things, but yeah.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about. Say for like the morning, for example, I want to know how it works in terms of having all these people lists. You got a photographer, you got a videographer, and you've got yourself on content
Yeah.
creation. Is it just you,
Yeah.
by the way, on the wedding day? Just you?
Most of the time, yeah. I can offer obviously a second shooter as well, but yeah, it's majority of the time it's just me.
Yeah. So how do you kind of? Because this is the point. This is the point of the day where I get really stressed. Like as the videographer, it's the worst point of the day. It's the end of the bridal prep. You want to get a nice shot of the bride fully ready because that's the most perfect she's going to look because she hasn't even stepped outside yet. She hasn't. The dress looks perfect. The makeup artists have just finished everything. I've also got to be getting set up for the ceremony because I need to mic people up. I need to get tripods up. So it's a really vital point of time when you need to get things done. Then the makeup artists and the hair start doing their content stuff, right? So I'm trying to work out how that's going to work with those guys, then a photographer and yourself. How do you operate in that moment?
Listen, my contract states very, very, very clearly I can never guarantee any shots. So you can tell me what you want, but it depends on how the day goes. The way that I see is there is a natural hierarchy on the day. If I have to sacrifice what I want, so be it. They are going to benefit so much more from having, you know, those beautiful stills and that fantastic cinematic film that looks absolutely perfect. If I can't fit in a confetti shot, I won't fit in a confetti shot. I just don't get it, or I just get it from somewhere else. You know, it's not the end of the world. The way that I sort of see it is you guys have got to get what you get. But the beauty about what I do is I don't really set anything up. So I will capture it as it unfolds. So however that happens, if I'm able to get it, I'm able to get it, and if I'm not, unfortunately I'm not. I can't ever guarantee any shots, and that's for that reason really, because you know we'd all love to obviously have unlimited time and get everything absolutely perfect, but that's just not how wedding days go, and I think we all know that. So I always will prioritise everything that the photographer and videographer needs. If at that point we've got the time, and I always say that about TikToks. So everybody always asks for these morning TikToks, and what they don't realise is they need to schedule them in.
Yes.
They need to speak to their photographer and videographer about when would be a great time to do them so that they're aware as well. But they also need to make sure that hair, makeup, everything is done. I always say an hour and a half before, because if you want TikToks and you want them perfect, we need a good 20-minute gap at least. So it's got to be done in good time. So I always say to people as well, if they have to be scrapped, they have to be scrapped, because you're going to want your bridal portraits that you can cherish forever more than that TikTok. So it's just about how the day unfolds. But, you know, I'm not going to be there getting in people's faces or anything like that with time constraints. It just has to be. It has to be done in you know, in a respectful way.
Yeah. And another thing that would be cool would be if you said to all the suppliers, you can't do your own content. You have to get it from the content creator. So like you're handling all that. So you're having to do like get the bridal shots. I'd like that. If it's one person doing it, fine. And it can all be manageable. We can negotiate it between us beforehand, and we can make sure that it flows smoothly. But when
it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because content is key and everybody needs their content. But it's the morning is a difficult one, because like I totally understand hair and makeup wanting all of their content, and that's their product at the end of the day. That's what they're selling and that's what they need for their socials. But again, maybe they need to take a little stance. Sometimes the way that I see it is, if that has to go for the sake of, you know, the timeline, then it has to go. Like
100%.
It's just...
Yeah. There's so many weddings where I've not got a nice shot of the bride in that morning. I just haven't been able to. But I can guarantee the bloody makeup artist has. And it's so frustrating. And it's like, because that's just for their marketing. I'm creating this for the couple, for them to keep forever. And their marketing has been prioritized somehow. Because a bride's not going to go, do you know when they say, can I get a shot? They're not going to go, no. They're like, no. But, and also, I don't want to be stepping in there going like, telling people off. But I think we just need to have a sit down, all the suppliers, and talk it through.
We do. Can we find a venue big enough? But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, like all suppliers on the day, I'll always say to everybody, anything that you want, you know, message me. I will happily send you anything. Like, but that has become a bit of a vicious circle, really, because I've actually had to put in my contract now that I want them to come to me and not the couple to share, because what happens is the couple share all of the content with hair and makeup. They share it with the person that's made the cake. They share it with the dress, but they don't tell them where it's come from. So then it's used. They make their own reels. They mix it in with all their own stuff they've taken. And then obviously I'm not credited for that then. So that becomes a bit of a difficult sort of cycle. So I just say to everyone now, you can have whatever you want, but come to me. And then at least I can sort of say, you are more than welcome to use everything. Just make sure you credit, please, just as you would photographer and videographer.
Yeah, because it's like the lines are blurred all across the board right now, aren't they? And especially with content creation coming in, it's all becoming a mishmash. And I'm really interested to see how it all evolves, how we all come out, where it goes, because however direction it goes, it's going to be directed by the couples. So it's going to be what they want and what they need. So I always try to like be ahead to put myself in their shoes. What do they want?
Yes.
What would work best for them to kind of how we go forward, and think it'll work out. But I think we're just at that weird point now where content creation is so new, but then also suppliers needing their content for social media. It's all kind of colliding at the minute, and hopefully
And I don't know how much you've come across it, but I'm coming across now that like hair and makeup stylists, they're then bringing their own content creators to get stuff as well, and that's becoming a bit of a difficult one. So I've had I'm sure like you guys, you have in your contract about being the only photographer, the only videographer. I've had to put it in now about being the only content creator, because I've had like photographers bring a content creator who is delivering the raw footage to the couple and making them a reel, and I'm like, what? That's exactly what I'm doing. That's insane. So yeah, I mean, it's blurred lines, but I just guess it's all learning, and that's how I see it. I've always been very open-minded about where I am today. I wasn't last year, and where I was last year, I wasn't at the start. So it's all about learning, evolving, working with people, collaborating with people, and eventually I think it will even out. I'm sure the same thing happened when videographers first came in.
Of course,
yeah. So it's all a learning journey.
Hi guys, it's Rue here, just briefly interrupting the episode to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Musicbed. Musicbed really is the best platform for licensing music for your wedding films. They have a huge database of amazing songs and brilliant search control, so you can really hone in on the type of song that you need for your edit. Chatting to all these incredible filmmakers during the podcast, one of the repeated themes I've noticed is that they're all using Musicbed to license their music. I myself have been using it for the last 6 years and really don't think there's anything else in the market that comes close. If you'd like to try Musicbed out for yourself, click the link in the description and you'll get a 14-day free trial where you can download and keep 3 songs to use in your projects, and you can see firsthand how good the music selection is. Now let's get back to the episode. I'm really interested in the logistics of how you're filming, kind of like some of the main moments where there's going to be photographers and videographers involved. So for the ceremony, for example, I know it's going to be different for every wedding, but say a ceremony where there's a videographer as well, how would you approach that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to obviously start with a conversation. So, prior to ceremony, I'm having that chat with a photographer and videographer. Have they got a second shooter? Where are their cameras set up? I will never obviously obstruct anything. There has been times where they're like, it's too small in here, there's just not a chance. So, I have to obviously sacrifice that, or, go to the back, or just be somewhere that's completely out of shot. But most of the time, we're able to obviously kind of all get in there. I'll usually take like the furthest sort of side away. It doesn't really matter sort of what my angle is, especially if they've got a videographer, because they've got those perfect angles there. It's just nice to see it from a kind of another perspective and see what's kind of going on in a raw sort of way. So yeah, just having a chat with them, making sure that I'm not going to obviously be in anything. I think being on the furthest side out then as well, and just making them aware that if they need to move at any point or they need me to move, they just kind of need to give me that signal. But if there's a videographer especially, I'll get a couple of snippets and I'm right out of the way. So I'll just stand right back. But yeah, to this day, I've never been told I've been in a shot. So,
oh, brilliant! That is great work, because I think, to be honest, I find I've got myself in my own shots more than anything, often more than photographers. So it'd be fine with content creators.
And I think just being open as well. Like, if you need me to move, tell me to get a shift on. Like, I'm not going to be offended. I'm absolutely fine, and I always make that very clear. And I think that's a really important thing that I do. Is I am literally like, if you need me to move, tell me to move. Like, I don't want. Believe it or not, I am not camera ready today. I don't want to be in these shots. Like, please leave me out of them. So yeah, I think it's just being open. And I'll always say as well, even if the content creator hasn't said that to you, as a videographer or photographer, just you're gonna have to obviously have that conversation and just ask them, because, you know, I'm sure they don't want to be in them equally.
Yeah. And then, so speeches, I think you mentioned if there's a videographer there, did you say you just stay out of the way completely?
Stay out of the way. Sometimes I do get asked, like usually I'm just kind of like, oh, you've got your speeches sorted, fine, no problem.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have been asked, oh, well, can you get some reactions and things then, which I guess is lovely as well.
Yeah.
And I always just say to them, look, it's one part of the day. It's the same with group shots, really. Like, you just need to leave it to them, really. You don't need an extra body in there wandering around. They've got cameras set up. It's nice for the photographer as well to be able to move very freely without wondering where I am, or, you know, those reaction shots are so quick as well. You know, they're literally looking very quickly. They don't need me sort of standing in the back with a phone. So I'll just say to them, look, I'm just out. Like, there's no point. So, and they're always really understanding about that, because it's something that I've always done. If there isn't a videographer, the difficulty is I don't particularly like filming them on my phone. The files are really big. They take ages for them to download. The audio quality is naff. And usually I'm standing at the back or near the back because I don't want to be obstructing the photographer. So the quality tends to be a bit rubbish, but it's always something that I'm conscious, you know, it's nice to listen back to them. So first and foremost, if they don't have a videographer, the first conversation I have with them is, have you got somebody on a close-ish table that can just have their phone in their lap? They're not going to have it up here, but, you know, it's not going to get in the way, but you'll just hear it and see it a lot better than I can do it anyway. I'm not filming it in any cinematic kind of way. It is fully raw. So if you want them filmed, is there a way that you can have that conversation or speak to your photographer? Is there some way you could put it up on a tripod that's not going to be in the way? That's always the first sort of the best sort of case scenario for that. If then they don't have that, then I will offer to film them, but I always ask the photographer where they're happy for me to be.
Quite often you'll have guests filming the entire speeches anyway, right? Like, all the time I see that happening. I'm thinking, I'm sat next to them with a camera thinking, what are you doing? Just enjoy it.
Yeah,
but then
exactly.
I get that they probably want to share that quite quickly with people and stuff like that. And also people just like to have things on their phone to watch back whenever they want, right? Rather than having to log into my VidFlow gallery or whatever.
Exactly. It's very accessible. And I think, I don't know, like, I mean, there's loads of parts of the day that are just a bit like over your head, isn't there? You don't take it all in, but speeches especially, I think. So I think it's nice for them to have that opportunity. So, and I always check on the day, even if they've said someone's filming them, I'll always go and double check, just so they've obviously got them, even if it's not the best quality. So, yeah.
So portraits, couple portraits, because that's another time I imagine you're definitely going to want footage of that. So how does that work? How do you need time with the couple as well, like, kind of, because with photographers and videographers we kind of bounce between us quite often. Hopefully that's our dream scenario. Do you get involved with that as well in terms of posing and things like that?
Not really. I mean, sometimes it kind of depends, really. Sometimes it just feels natural when you're working as a team as three, and you know when you feel comfortable to just be like, why don't you try this, why don't you try this, why don't you try this. Maybe I've been at the venue before, maybe I've spotted something they haven't spotted. So sometimes, I guess, but no, I mean, majority of the time it is capturing it very authentically. It's just capturing the kind of giggles and the laughs and them having a little walk together. When I sort of film my content, I want them to be able to look back at it afterwards and be like, oh, do you remember when so-and-so said that? Do you remember when we were talking about that? And I want it to come across really authentic rather than really staged and posed. But don't get me wrong, there are definitely times where it just really works. Or if I'm just working with a photographer, you know, sometimes you get a bit of brain block, right? Like, that's just natural. So sometimes it's nice to sort of just go, oh, should we try this? Or do you think this will be fun? Because obviously what photographers need is very different to what, like, obviously movement we kind of need. So sometimes it works well, and sometimes I feel like I can say something, but most of the time it's just capturing it as it unfolds, really.
Yeah, that's because I was kind of interested in how that would play out, and that was the thing from the videographers that I've spoken to that have worked with you, and they said that the process was great. Like, some of them said, like, yeah, you barely knew you were there, but there was one that said you were helpful in terms that you came up with some ideas as well, so it gave them some thinking space to kind of come basically exactly what you said. So it's kind of you basically have to read the room, I guess, don't you?
Yes, definitely read the room, and also read the couple. So sometimes that couple might not feel like they're not the posy type, they feel a little bit uncomfortable, but also sometimes you will get like maybe a photographer that maybe doesn't know the couple as well, or they might be friends with them and they think that they can push it so far, but actually you're like, they're not feeling it. So it is about reading the couple as well, what they feel obviously comfortable doing. But I always think it's really nice when you're able to bounce ideas off each other, because there are times where like I will set something up and a photographer and videographer will come in and use that, and I'm always so welcome to that, because I'm like, you know what, that's a great compliment, like you actually like what I've done, so come on board, like, and that's sort of like a huge compliment. But yeah, if it's kind of we will let the team obviously sort of dictate that and guide that session, and we'll just capture it from a different perspective, see how, again, everything looks different.
And from this might seem like a weird question, but I've got motivations behind it. From the videographers that you have worked with, what's the kind of percentage male to female?
Oh my goodness, it's like 90% male, isn't it? It's definitely mostly male. And I think sometimes that's when like a girl comes in well, and like I've had a lot of male videographers say, God, how did you spot her hair like that? I didn't spot that. And, little things like that you can spot as kind of like a girl as well. So that's quite nice. But yeah, I haven't worked with a massive amount of female videographers. It tends to be, predominantly male.
Yeah, and that's what I thought, and I'm really trying to fight against that with Coda. I really want to try and make the female videographers have a voice, because they must be out there, right? Are they like? But also my other question is, of the content creators that what's the kind of ratio male to female?
95% female. Yeah, so it's completely the other way.
So this is really interesting, because I think content creation is very close to videography. It's almost the same, but not quite. But I almost think we're going to have, and I hope we're going to have, an influx of female videographers come through from being content creators, because they seem to, for whatever reason, I do wonder whether videographers are considered boys with their toys, in terms of like, it's very, very, videography is very gear heavy compared to, say, photography. Because I'd say I work with 90% female photographers, so I'd say photography is female dominated. Do you find that as well with the photographers you work with, or?
I actually would say it's really mixed, but I'm really lucky because I work with different people every, like, some people say to me, like, give me a photographer you work with all the time, and I can't really name that many, because although I do get a lot of like recommendations, and I get a lot of like supplier recommendations, so I do work with the same people often. I'm really lucky because I get to work with so many people, and I'm such a people person. I love hearing people's stories and finding out about their lives. So I'm like, oh, new blood, like, yes. So I work with so many. I'd say it's very 50-50 with photography, but I have 2 associate shooters that shoot for my weddings for me sometimes, and both are male, but that's really rare.
Yeah.
Really rare. So yeah, I haven't seen many male content creators. There's a couple floating around for sure, but mostly female. So maybe you're right, maybe it will.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's just because, like, I mean, it's not a million miles away from videography, yet it seems to be female dominated, whereas videography seems to be the opposite. So hopefully this will be a catalyst for change as well. So we'll just see that it start to even up, because surely like a female perspective is always going to be better, because the wedding industry is it's targeted towards brides. Would you say that's a fair assumption?
Oh, massively targeted towards brides. But actually I've really tried to step away from that with when I first come about on the scene. I didn't want to kind of have like brides this and brides that and brides in my name and things like that. And I just think, like, going forward, I see questionnaires where it says bride's name, groom's name. How on earth are we in 2024 and we're still doing this? Think about your language, think about how, what your marketing looks like, and just be really inclusive. But yeah, you're absolutely right with what you're saying. It's definitely more targeted that way. And I guess like from a financial perspective, I guess I understand it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, but hopefully things will mix up. But I really do, like, I really am, like, so keen for like the wedding industry to change, the UK wedding scene to change, and there to be like more inclusivity across the board, and because I just want everyone to get better. And I just think the more diversity we have in people and the more perspectives and outlooks we have, that's going to make the work better. And if we all make the work better, we can all charge more.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got to be open-minded, haven't you, as well? You've just got to be totally open-minded. But I mean, you say about, obviously being quite female, dominating in like photography and having that female perspective. I think that is great. But sometimes I always like, It's quite nice seeing a male perspective as well. So like I find that like a lot of male videographers can be like they see things in a different way to how I'm seeing them. So
Yeah.
I think it's always just everybody just complements each other, and I think if we all just respect each other's crafts and respect each other's art, like we're all in a very artistic industry, aren't we? So it's just
Yeah.
nice to kind of look at what everyone does and go, you know, I really like that about them, and you know, that's beautiful. You know, I look at videographers sometimes and think, oh my goodness, like that is phenomenal, like absolutely phenomenal, and I learn from them. So
The underlying thing is we're creating a product for our couples that our couples have
yeah.
ordered, that our couples want, that they want to cherish forever. So
Mm-hmm.
we all have our own specialties and our own disciplines. That it's all, but we can bounce off each other on the day to make sure we're giving the best for our couples. Where
Yeah.
do you see? So how many weddings are you going to be shooting next year in 2025?
So as the year, I mean, my friend said to me right at the start, it's going to take you 2 years to learn what you can take and what you know, what a good number is. And I was like, no, like 1 year in, like I'm going to know. So the first year I did 110 and yeah, I'm surprised I'm still here. It was hard. It was really, I mean, I was doing like 4 to 5 back-to-backs throughout the summer. It was really
Yeah.
brutal. And you can get a 24-hour turnaround, but my God, it's hard. So yeah, I realised quickly that I needed to give a little bit more separation there. So this year I've done maybe 90 something, and it's
Wow.
still a little bit too much. So for next year, I think I've got currently 70 something, and I think I'm almost done. I also obviously want to give myself the time to learn photography and be able to go to some styled shoots. And I've been very lucky to meet so many amazing photographers and videographers that have come with open arms and said, Mal, come and second shoot for us, come
Yeah.
do whatever you want, you know, shadow me for the day. So I want to take the opportunity to be able to do that, but I can't do that if I'm doing that many weddings.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm at my max now. I'm about to open 2026. I've got a waiting list currently full of 120 people. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. But you've got associates as well, so you can like double up on days. Do you do that?
So I don't. The difficulty is I think when people book me, they're booking me.
Yeah.
So I've actually found that that's a little bit of a learning curve. So if I'm already booked and I have somebody come in and they love the way that we work, I still edit everything. So I will always offer an associate shooter and say, you know, I am booked, but I have got an associate shooter. I will still edit. You know, we still work the same, and a lot of people are happy with that because some people are booking the service. But I think when you put your face on everything like I do, and I'm very like, I'm
Yeah.
chatty in my stories, I'm chatty in my DMs, I'm chatty on my TikTok and things like that. I've learned that people do book me for me. So yes, when I send out contracts and stuff now, I make it very clear, you're not actually booking me, you're booking our company. But majority I obviously do myself. So my associates don't work for me full time at all. They just do bits here and there. So,
Yeah.
you know, I've had a couple where I've been really, really poorly, like I was the last few weeks, and I've had no choice, obviously. But most of the time, I am doing 98% of weddings on my own. So
Yeah.
I just have to be a little bit careful with that. And I don't think I'm at the point where I want to let go of that either yet.
Right. So you're not looking at the minute, like, because I'm thinking you can scale like to Mrs. Bun Enterprises, whatever. So you got like a whole team shooting out. That's
Yeah.
not on the cards just yet, but it's
Do you know what? I don't think it is. I think what's more on the cards is offering the full package. I think that's where I'm kind of leaning towards. I'm leaning more towards having me potentially go into photography, my husband potentially go into video because he shoots odd weddings with me and he's
yeah.
absolutely brilliant. So he has his own full-time job and things like that. But I think eventually we make a really, really good team. And it's great when we work with fantastic teams who inspire us and cheer us on. But unfortunately, we don't always get that. And I think
Yeah.
those bad apples do make us feel like, you know what, we'll do it on our own then. And so I think I'm leaning more towards expanding in that sense, and then having content creators that work with us rather than, or having, like, say, my own content creator work for my business with
Yes.
us. More than having loads and loads of content creators, because one thing I don't want to let go of is the edit, because that's what I think makes my style my style. So if I send out someone doing 80 weddings a year and I do 80 weddings a year, I've still got to edit 160 weddings. So I just don't know that I'm there yet.
Yeah, yeah. And that's because that's one of my questions was going to be, how come it's photography that you want to go into rather than videography? But you're thinking more lines of you want to handle the photo and then your husband would handle the video side. But why
Well,
photo?
Do you know what? It's not even a definite right now, because one thing I will say is the way that we work and the way that we shoot on our iPhones is very hybrid. It's 90% video, 10% photo. You know, we're not taking a massive amount of photo. You've got a wonderful photographer for that. But we may take odd snaps so that, you know, if you don't get previews the next day, you've got a few snappies to send to people that weren't there or put on your stories, you know, that kind of vibe. But I don't know, there's something about taking a snap in that moment that I quite enjoy, but then I do enjoy the video. So, you know, James and I, as my husband, we have floated the idea about us both being hybrid.
Yes.
And, you know, we've been lucky enough to go to a few like little workshops and things, and we've heard some people speak. You know, do you know John Taylor? I think he's amazing.
Yeah.
And I've worked with Gary Nunn loads as well, and they both shoot hybrid photo and video on their own, which I don't know how they do it, but oh my God, they're like genius. But there's something about like the hybriding that I quite like.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit greedy that I like doing both. So I don't know. I say photo and I say video. I think it's probably more because James leans more towards video than he does towards photo. And that's why we've kind of gone there. But there is also an option that we both go and shoot hybrid, which I quite like the idea of. And we just sort of tag team it. So yeah, it's all open for discussion, and I think that's why I've said for next year, I just need to go out with these people. I need to go out with these amazing people who inspire me and just go and have a go. I'm going to invest in some equipment, and I'm going to go and do both, and then see which one just fits better. But the amount of equipment slightly scares me, because I'm a little bit of a wimp and I don't know if I could carry it up.
And do you think that is why that's the holding back for videography, people getting into videography in general, is the gear? Do you think that's what put people off?
I think possibly. When James and I have discussed it, and we don't know how we're going to do this yet, so I don't want to, you know, say too much, but we have spoken about how this has been a craft that's helped us sort of think about going forward. And actually, if we were to go into photo and video, we would do things very different to how they're being done now.
Right. Can you go into that? Are you happy to divulge that how you would change things up?
Well, I don't. This is what I'm saying. I don't want to say too much because it's just floating ideas around at the moment. But I would consider shooting a wedding in a portrait.
Yeah. All day, like portrait. Or what you mean? You mean video, filming it
video.
in portrait. I'm gonna say, because photographers have literally moved to pretty much portrait all the time now, haven't they? Yeah. Okay, so you'd film it like that. Is interesting. Why is that? Because of how it's going to be consumed?
I think so. Yeah. I think cinematic films are wonderful, and I think they're absolutely amazing. But one thing content's sort of teaching me, and you know, I'm learning all the time, is people want things on their phone. And obviously when you shoot in landscape and then try and make a portrait out of it for like Instagram, it just doesn't really look right and it doesn't work. And that's why I really struggled with TikTok, because I was like, I'll choose on my videography, but landscape just doesn't work as well on there. So it's getting better now, but back 2 years ago it definitely didn't. But I don't know, maybe is that an option? Like, can we shoot videos in portrait? Like, I don't know. Again, this is like, I'm just floating ideas around, like, do I go out and give that a go? Like, see what that looks like? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, because there'll be a market for that, surely, won't they, right? There's someone wants like a highly cinematic film, but they're thinking, I want it in portrait because that's how I want to watch it.
I think it's definitely a niche, and that's what you'd have to realise, is you certainly wouldn't be appealing to everybody. But I think, is there a market out there for that? I don't know, maybe, and that's something I would probably I think I'm in a good position where what I do now, I wouldn't say established, but I'm getting there for sure. So I know that like I'm kind of good. I can just then play around with everything else. I can get a camera, I can go out and I can just give things a go, because it doesn't matter, because I've got my craft that I'm quite like happy with. So maybe that's given me the kind of bravery of like leaving a complete career and jumping into this. It's just given me a bit of bravery to be like, well, you know what, I'll go and try that, and if it fails, it fails, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, like just. Will, you know, weddings just adapt as time goes on? Will we shoot things differently? Will things start to look different? And I don't know, just
will we all start turning our TVs on their side so they're all portrait as well?
Maybe. I don't know what's going on. Or I think, you know, I mean, there's definitely talk at the moment, isn't there, about you know, will cameras become that good that you'll shoot a video but you'll be able to take stills from it? Like
Yeah, we're there.
insane.
I think we're
So
there now. I'll be honest, we're there
yeah,
now. Like,
yeah.
yeah, that could absolutely be done. Yeah.
So again, that's something I'd probably, play around with as well. So, but I mean, this is we're talking like the next, few
Yeah.
years, I suppose, and this could the probably videographers listening to this like thinking you sound absolutely ridiculous, but I'm just thinking about what my couples are saying to me and
Yes.
what they want.
But you've got to where you've got now in 2 years. That's fast. That is super fast. And you've got there by not staying, obviously, by moving in progression and seeing what the market has told you what it wants, hasn't it? And you've listened. Like from the
Yeah.
early on when you put the clips out from your own wedding. They told you, do this for us, haven't they? Like, and you've listened and you've taken on board.
Weirdly, yeah. And I think right at the beginning, I was kind of like researching like what makes a successful business, like what are these people doing? Do I need to make my grid look like that? Do I need to put this on my story? And then what I realized very quickly is just authenticity is the key, and actually just being confident in your own work and being confident with what you put out there will attract the right people for you anyway. And I've really struggled with that because I have terrible imposter syndrome. And I guess that comes from like 12 years as a teacher. I knew I was very good at that and I was very confident in what I did. And then coming into a world where at first everyone hated me.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, don't come anywhere near these weddings. You're not allowed to do this. I was sent rule books. No word of a lie. I got sent from a photographer a rule book, rules that the content creator needs to follow. And number one was do not approach or speak to the subject. No word of a lie.
The subject? What's the subject?
Yes. The clients were the
Oh
subject.
my God.
The couple were the subject. It's insane.
Wow.
No one believes me until I've got the receipts. I'll show you the receipts. But it's absolutely crazy. But I think I really struggled with that sort of like imposter syndrome of I'm booking weddings, but no one wants me to be there, blah, blah, blah. But then obviously new content creators coming on the scene would look at me and maybe a few of the other sort of what we call the OGs, the ones that started right at the beginning. And they would just copy absolutely everything that you did. I would speak in a story and 20 minutes later, someone else would be saying the exact same thing in the story. That's how bad it had become. And like, I've spoken to so many content creators and just been like, you know what? Just do you, because what you're doing, it's not going to come across to the couples, it's not going to look right because that's not you being you. I've changed my grid multiple times because it's been copied constantly.
Really?
And I've got to the point now where I just think, I can't keep worrying about it. I've just got to just continue being me because it's going to happen, isn't it? And I'm sure it happens across, everybody else's sort of niche as well. So, but that's a hard pill to swallow for sure.
It is, and even no matter how many times people tell you, "Wow, if they're copying you, it's quite flattering, isn't it?" Like, but at the same time, no, it's just annoying.
It's just annoying. I think it's because as well, like when doing something new in this industry, you really want to like not make a name for yourself, but you want to give a good impression and blah blah blah. And you think I'm going to have a go at this. I'm going to do this. This is how I'm going to do it. And then 2 minutes later, it's like it's someone else is doing it, and you're like, oh God, like it's so hard. But I've just had to learn to accept that. No, that's just how it is. And I think it's you can take inspo from people. I take inspo from people all the time, but it's just still making it your own. So but we're just in a bit of a funny time, I guess, aren't we? Of all
it's evolving. Like I say, I like it. I think it's exciting, but I always like to kind of keep my eye on everything, thinking I don't want to be left behind, basically, because I feel I was a photographer originally when I came into the industry. And I feel like I came in the wave of the kind of documentary photographers, and as we were just seeing the changeover from like the old school photographers that had shot in film, so they'd only just do group shots and they'd just do like a couple of the portraits. When we came in, we started documenting everything, but you saw those people that hadn't shifted with the times and got left behind. And I feel like there's another wave of it happening right now. There's a wave of like, we all have to keep an eye on how content's being created and how our couples want their content, as in their films and everything and their photos. Because I think they're going to want it slightly differently to how historically they've had it. And if we all just stick to how we're used to, we're gonna fall behind, I think. So it's keeping an eye on it.
I think you're right, and even it worries me as well with what I do, because I think with mine it's slightly different with what I do because age can impact that. Because realistically, like I can go into photography and videography and I can have that craft for a very long time, but actually in 10-15 years time, am I going to be too old to be like learning all the trends and figuring out what's trendy and looking at all those things? I'm not going to be, I don't feel like I'm going to feel the same way about
Yeah.
it. So I guess that impacts it a lot, and that worries me a little bit. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
everything just from where I got married 2 years ago to where we are now, things have changed drastically. So it's evolving constantly, isn't it?
Did you have a videographer at your wedding?
Yes, I did have a videographer. 100% I had a videographer.
Who was it?
It was a guy called Mark from White in Motion, if you've heard of
Oh,
him.
yes. Yeah.
Good old
Yeah.
Mark, lush. It's so fun. I had a photographer called Daniel Ackley as well. So I went very documentary style, as in I wanted two people that were going to come to my wedding day and have just as much fun as I did. And
Yeah.
God, did those boys have fun. So yeah, I had the best day with them, and I have no regrets about that. I mean, actually now, like if I look at weddings that I'm really inspired by, photography and videography that I'm really inspired by, I actually really like, I think my style leads more towards an editorial kind of vibe.
Yes.
But when I got married, I didn't know that. So like I very much went with, listen, I've spent a lot of money on this day and I just want to enjoy it. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what we did. You know, that was absolutely perfect for what we were after. So I think that's always a great tip. Do your research, speak to people. What are you actually after on the day? Because I, like, for example, I had no group shots. Like, so I was just like, no, don't fancy it. Don't want to do it. I've got a magician in there that's so cool. I want to go and see that instead.
Yeah.
So it's just about what you're after on the day, really. But everything just changes. But them two guys were amazing.
Yeah. And how do you watch your wedding film often much now? Is it something that you still go back to?
Do you know what? If I'm being totally honest, I don't watch it often at all. Again, I think it's that accessible thing, but we do watch it. You know, we watch it every anniversary, and we've got it on one of those, like, I don't know if you've seen them. They're like quite big on like TikTok and things, but they're like, you can open them up like a photo album and it plays on that.
Yes.
So like I'll watch it every now and again. But I think that's kind of the beauty of videography, is actually not watching it like all the time. And maybe that's a bit of a like an unpopular opinion, because a lot of people will say, oh, I'm not going to book a videographer, it's really expensive because I don't feel like I'm going to watch it all the time. But actually I find that really special about what you guys do, is that we watch it once or twice a year, but actually when we watch it, it feels like we're watching it fresh again. If I was to watch it on my phone every day, I don't know if I'd appreciate it as much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think you need to watch it all the time, but it's when you watch it, you're fully immersed in it, and you're totally involved.
And it's timeless. Yeah, and it's timeless. Like I can watch that in, and I will always say this to my couples when they say that they're not sure about a video, like me or a videographer, if they you know, they don't want both. I always say, you imagine in 20, 30, 40 years time, you can still watch that video. You can't watch my reel.
Yeah. Why can't they watch the reel?
So I don't think it will last that long, do you?
Do you think, like, kind of what?
Quality-wise and stuff?
Because
If we think back to like ones that we watch from our parents, like that was the best of the best then, and that looks not great now quality-wise. So where are we going to be at in another, 20, 30 years?
Yeah, true. Because I think with the reel, because I'm thinking, the social media platforms may come and go, but I mean, you give them a video file, don't you? So they can just, but it's going to be stored on their phones, and maybe that will get lost along the way. I don't know.
Exactly. I just think it's not quite the same either, is it? It's not quite the same. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I got a couple more questions for you. Like, where are you getting the majority of your work from these days? Is it still for your social media channels, and which ones?
Yeah, I'd say probably more so Instagram. I think my TikTok is very separate now. So TikTok I keep as a very community based. I don't really massively touch on my business over there, because I like that people can just come there for a bit of inspo and a bit of lightheartedness. Like I don't want to be selling to them on there. Like it doesn't feel right. So definitely more so from Instagram. I would say like most come through supplier recommendations, which is so nice. Mostly photographers and videographers, because they're I mean,
you're in a safe pair of hands. If they need a content creator, they've worked with you. They know that you're going to handle it right. Yeah.
And I actually have like a lot of not so much joint packages, but I am an addition on a lot of photographers and videographers packages now. So if they want one, they send over my brochure, which is amazing and such a huge compliment. So yeah, I have a lot of people reaching out to me about that all the time. And I think it's like you say, if you work well with somebody, you want to work with them, don't you, more often? So a lot of it comes through that, because I guess clients mostly book photo and video first, although I am having a lot come through to me first, which is crazy now.
No way. I knew it. I knew this is how it would go.
It's correct. I had one the other day, like they come through and they're like, I haven't even thought about photo and video yet, and I'm like, what? Like, that's insane. So yeah, I think majority comes through suppliers, venues and things like that as well, which again, huge compliment. And a lot of the time I get friends, bridesmaids, friends at the wedding, people that have seen me there and gone, oh my God, is that who that was? That's what she was creating. Well, I need that of mine now. So a lot of the time it's that as well.
Yeah, and the fact that you're getting content to them the next day, where the emotions of the wedding, that's when everything gets shared, isn't it? The next day, the longer you leave after the wedding day, the less likely it is to get shared. So your content's getting shared fast. You're getting spread out there. And one gossipy question: the kickback that you've had from suppliers, has it been predominantly who's been worse, videographers or photographers, in terms of the kickback to content creators?
Photographers, 100%. Yes.
I knew it.
I rarely get a videographer that has a problem with me, actually. I don't know, I'm not really, I guess you could dive into it and figure little bits out of why that is, but I haven't really had many videographers that it is always photographers. But like I said, it's not so much anymore. So we're talking more past tense. But yes, it was. It's always been them,
I kind of, it makes sense in a way, because as videographers, we're always at least second on the hierarchy, because there's always a photographer there.
Maybe that's what it is. You're used to it anyway.
Yeah, we're used to having to like negotiate for space, and kind of like we know how it goes. Possibly, I don't know. Let's put that out there and see what people come back with.
Yeah, let us know.
So I've got one last question for you, Matt. Thank you so much for your time, mate. And I know your AirPods are running out, your lights run out.
We've still got one. I know. Sort of like, this is going to be really weird for, like, it's gone dark now, but yeah, it's fine.
What were the biggest light bulb moments in your career so far, when something suddenly made sense, and how did you progress or find a path that you wanted to take?
I think there's definitely been a few over the years, and I think that's why I've changed what I do. You know, not regularly, but I've changed what I do quite a lot, and I've progressed massively. I think there was definitely one sort of near the beginning when, I guess, you know, when I had those emails the next day and I was like, wow, like, this is people actually want this. Like, there really was a gap for that. And I think that was probably, you know, the first one. I think then me sort of finding my feet and kind of looking at what everybody else was doing and going, is that what I need to do? Is that what I need to do? But actually realizing that me just being me was what I needed to do, and sort of like just becoming a little bit more confident. And then I think there's one that's very specific, actually. I actually did a wedding right at the beginning. I think I actually started in like October 2022, but my first sort of like year was like January. And I did a wedding in the April, and I worked with Gary Nunn, and I always say this to him, and he knows this because I've told this story a few times, but it was at like an influencer wedding, so I was really nervous about it. There was a lot of people there, you know, I felt really apprehensive about it. And I saw his like work and his following and thought, oh my God, he's going to hate me. Oh, it's going to be awful. And he was literally the nicest person that I think I've ever met in my entire life. And he really changed the game for me, because he sat me down at lunch and he sort of said to me, like, I love what you do. It's very clever. I can completely see where this is going. But have you thought about this? And that's how he said it to me. And he gave me a few tips about what I was doing, how I was filming, where I could be. And he didn't do it in like a mean way that I'd experienced before, where people were just going in at me or saying things on social media. He put it in such a positive spin. And I sat down, and after that conversation, I just thought, everything now makes sense.
Yeah.
Everything makes sense. And I came away from that, and I genuinely felt like after that day, I was a different person.
Really?
And I was a different person in like how I approached things and how I would communicate. And it really, really, really helped me. So I always say that to him. I'm always like, he massively helped me. And that's why I always say to people, like, as a videographer and as a photographer, you've got such a massive, like, I guess, platform for content creators, because we're looking up to you, and we're kind of learning from you and learning your craft and learning how to be respectful. And I always think, like, if you've got somebody there that maybe does need that helping hand, like, give it to them, because they might see it the way that I saw it and was just like, wow, like, I'm totally inspired. And yeah, just everything just made sense after that. So yeah, maybe that one.
What a great way to round up the podcast, Mal. Can you let us know your socials and where people can find you so they can recommend you to all their weddings, obviously?
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. So on Instagram's probably the best one. So I'm at mbweddings_events on there. So yeah, just drop us a follow. Let's have a chat. I'd love to meet you guys. And honestly, I'm just buzzing to work with anybody. So yeah, and if anyone has any questions about it or they're a bit apprehensive about working with one, just reach out. Like, I'd love to have a chat with you.
Thank you so much, mate. Appreciate your time.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Coda Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and wouldn't mind helping us out, please consider leaving a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. We have many more conversations with inspiring filmmakers still to come, so make sure to subscribe to be notified when the next episode goes live.